Brad, ABC News correspondent in New York. Good morning, Brad Melke.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
All right, we're talking about Syria and what's going on. Nikki Haley, the UN ambassador, condemned Syria. Donald Trump had some interesting comments as well yesterday. Where are we today?
Yeah, that's right. And this was Nikki Haley's first big test as UN ambassador. And as part of that test, leading the United Nations Security Council, she put forward a resolution along with the U.S., along with the U.K. and France that doesn't just condemn the attacks. Of course, those are just words. It also would command Syria to provide some documentation from the last few days, basically giving over the names and flight paths for some of its helicopters. The working theory is that it was another helicopter that delivered this deadly chemical weapons attack. This would start to get at an investigation as to who exactly in Syria was responsible. Then you got Syria, you have Russia saying this was not the Syrian government's fault at all. And so because of that, Russia's saying that they might veto this resolution. So bottom line is right now there's a whole lot of inaction in the UN, which is not that unusual. Nikki Haley saying the U.S. might take unilateral action if that remains the case.
Yeah, let's talk about Russia for just a moment because Russia, we don't know. Do we know where are they with this? They've been friendly with Syria in the past. This interesting relationship President Trump has with Russia. Where does all that stand?
Yeah, well, as mercurial as President Trump has been towards Russia, Nikki Haley and Secretary of State Rex Tillerson have been blindingly clear in pointing not just to Syria and saying this is clearly a chemical weapons attack by the Syrian government, but in calling out Russia explicitly. Nikki Haley said Assad, Russia, and Iran, another Syrian ally, have no interest in peace. She said, how many more children have to die before Russia cares? This is as she was holding pictures of Syrian children that were killed in this massacre. Rex Tillerson said it's time the Russians really need to rethink their continued support of the Assad regime. And, you know, Russia has sort of stood by Syria saying this wasn't the Syrian government. This was actually Syrian rebels that deserve a lot of the blame. A State Department spokesman says anyone with a sixth grade education can see that doesn't hold water. So really tough talk for Russia. Rex Tillerson's going to be there next week. The question is, does President Trump actually follow through on all this tough language?
Yeah, no, he didn't say anything about Russia yesterday, did he?
Correct. No, he talked about Assad, talked about the Syrian regime, said it crossed a lot of red lines, didn't say if Syria's biggest ally in Russia was crossing any of those lines.
Is it? There's no easy answer. Syria is a hornet's nest as much as you want to blame the past administration, as Donald Trump did. Sure. I think Donald Trump is finding out that there is no easy answer to this.
Well, that's right. And I think what's so interesting here is, you know, you heard him call out President Obama for using the phrase red line and then not really enforcing it, right? Which only proves that in international diplomacy, words really matter. The international community doesn't care if it's just some sort of blowhard political promise to your people back home. Like when you use a phrase, those words really matter. And so President Trump is really going to have to watch what he says, because everything that his administration says, whether it's, you know, the U.S. might have to act unilaterally if the United Nations doesn't do anything, all these things have consequences, and they really shape the geopolitics here. President Trump hasn't committed to doing one thing or another yet, but eventually he's going to have to sort of settle on a path, and that's going to have big ramifications.
Jared Kushner's profile is being raised. Steve Bannon has been kicked out of the NSA. How does that work with all of this Syria stuff?
It's a big demotion for Steve Bannon, as much as the Trump team has said that it's not necessarily, it all sort of follows in a manner of course. Apparently, McMaster, the head of the National Security Council there and the new National Security Advisor, he had sort of made this a condition that there be less politics in there. So this could conceivably sort of give the intelligence community a little bit sort of better handle there as they sort of suss out what to do in Syria. But you bring up Jared Kushner's name. That's an important one, because as much as we want to talk about Nikki Haley and Rex Tillerson and these diplomats, you know, Jared Kushner has gotten a lot of power in the White House. You could imagine diplomats from Russia, from the Middle East, saying, you know, Rex Tillerson, Nikki Haley saying all these things, but maybe I should just call Kushner and see what the real line is from the White House. So how much power the president gives to different people in the administration is going to have a lot to do with where things go from here.
Brad Melke, ABC News correspondent. Brad, thanks for helping out read the tea leaves for us.
Hey, thank you. 17